You ever wake up on a Saturday thinking the wildest thing you'll deal with is maybe a flat tire or a neighbor wanting to borrow your post hole digger? Yeah, that's how I used to think too, right up until I looked out my kitchen window and saw an entire HOA board rolling up to my fence line like they were on a field trip. Clipboards in hand, portable espresso cart trailing behind, and a contractor in a neon vest eyeing my orchard like he'd already seen it on HGTV. That was the day I learned there's no limit to the kind of nonsense a group of determined suburbanites can cook up if you give them enough time and a pastel-colored marketing brochure. You want a hook. How about this? Within 20 minutes, the president of that HOA called 911 on me, the guy standing on his own land in his own boots for trespassing on my own property. Yeah, that happened. Buckle up, because this is the kind of story where every step leaves a paper trail and a bruise. Now, my farm isn't some corporation. It's 80 acres of sweat, honey, apples, hay bales, and interns who show up thinking they're on a wholesome summer adventure only to leave with forearms like climbing rope and stories their city friends won't believe. My east side borders a shiny new subdivision, the kind where all the driveways look identical and they name their HOA the village like it's a page out of a storybook. That place has rules about wreaths contests for who has the prettiest mulch and a newsletter so glossy you could use it as a mirror. But what they didn't have a firm grip on where their village ends and my orchard begins. See, when I bought this farm, I read everything. The deed, the zoning exceptions, irrigation easements dating back to when disco was still a thing. Even a handwritten note about a fence setback from some ancient neighborly spat. Rural property. The surprises don't come from coyotes or weather, they come from paperwork. One bad line in an easement and you're fighting over cow paths in court for a year. On paper, the subdivision was supposed to border me and nothing more. But somewhere between an early draft of their plat map and the final one on record, some overzealous developer pasted a green rectangle labeled Community Barn right over my windbreak, then quietly retracted it before anything got built. Too bad the marketing team never got the memo. So for years, those new homeowners were promised a barn, a place for their seasonal markets and cookie exchanges. The developers skipped town with everyone's dreams still dangling, and suddenly the HOA board decided they'd just take matters into their own hands. Their solution: put that barn right on my side of the fence. That's where Merritt enters the picture. If ever a name sounded pressed and starched, it's his. HOA president, king of polite, unreasonable requests. He greeted me with a smile that said he was about to sell me swampland in Florida. Good morning. We're so excited to get moving on the community barn. Today's just survey and staging. No noise, minimal disruption. He hands me not a deed, not a plat map, but a laminated marketing flyer with clip art ribbon cutting and my orchard reduced to a pastel blur under their big brown rectangle. Behind him, a contractor's running a tape along my line of catalpa trees like he's measuring out his future. A few residents are already picturing their holiday craft fairs. And over on his porch, my neighbor Adler, retired mechanic man of few words, master of the eyebrow, just shakes his head and settles in with a mug of coffee like he's about to watch the slowest train wreck of the year. I set the flyer down on the espresso cart. I didn't reach for county GIS. I went right to my phone, pulled up the photo of me and my surveyor COA flags, and all marking the boundary just after closing. You might want to check the recorded plat, I said. Merritt gave me that patient, condescending smile. The homeowners approved the barn. It's been years of discussion. I said discussion doesn't move boundary lines. Lacey, the property manager, tried to smooth it over. Let's not start adversarially. I said, then stop measuring my trees. The contractor froze. I held out my hand. Show me a deed. Show me an easement. Show me anything with a stamp. All they had was a brochure and audacity. That's when Merritt called 911. I watched him do it, calling me a hostile trespasser to the dispatcher twice. While we waited for the deputy, I texted Koa the surveyor, my friend Sable, who runs kids programs on the farm, and Adler, who responded with a thumbs up, which from him is like a standing ovation. Deputy Harlan rolled up 15 minutes later, instantly reading the room clipboard's espresso, a contractor praying for a change of assignment, me not budging off my grass. Merritt points, hostile trespasser. Harlan looks at me, says, "You got paperwork?" Oh, I did. Deed plat title letter in bold, no encroachments. Harlan walks the line with me, and Koa points and flags and ditches right down to the old oak that ends lawsuits if you know your metes and bounds. This isn't your land, Harlan tells the HOA. Votes don't move boundaries. If you start work, you're trespassing. Merritt turns red. You can't say that. Harlan. I can and I am. If you want to dispute the boundary, take it to court. The crowd starts packing up, grumbling. Merritt leans in and tells me, "You're making an enemy of this community." Adler from his porch hollers, "Get off his land." That's all he needed to say. But entitlement has gravity. 2 days later, I get a letter official stationery to whom it may concern, as if my own name on my mailbox offends them. The letter says I've got 30 days to remediate encroachment and relocate trees, or they'll fine me $200 a day. My attorney Bishop, never seen a tie knot that wasn't perfect, laughed out loud. They can't fine you, you're not under their covenants. Write back, send the deed, tell them to cease and desist. So we did, every which way certified, emailed, hand-delivered. Still, the game's escalated. A neighbor's kid buzzed my hives with a drone footage, hit the HOA's private page with captions about containing agricultural spread. Sable sent me the comment section, greatest hits. Can't he move the hives? Doesn't he need permission for bees? Can we file a lien? My favorite, Bishop said, add defamation to the list but don't throw the first punch. I didn't. They called 911 again, this time illegal grading equipment on HOA land. It was my box blade parked where it always is on my side of the ditch. Trail cam footage caught 2 HOA board members sneaking over my fence, planting a sign, "Future barn, no trespassing." The irony almost knocked me over. The next morning, that sign was staked in my field. I set it gently against the espresso cart with a note, "Do not litter on my land." The stakes made great replacements for my raspberry trellis. That's when they crossed the line, for real, literally, and legally. The HOA's treasurer filed a false lien against my property for unpaid HOA dues. Bishop's calm voice turned sharp. That's slander of title, and it's criminal in this state. We sue for damages, attorney fees, and an injunction. Do you have video? Oh, we've got a gallery. Lawsuit filed next day. Slander of title, trespass, and an order to make them stop. Then I did something nobody expected. I invited the whole HOA for a tour. If you believe the barn stands on my orchard, walk the line with me. About 20 showed up. We started at the corner pin. I explained metes and bounds, why the imagined barn site floods every spring, why no permit would ever be issued there. By the end, a woman named Jeannie pulled my sleeve, eyes bright with embarrassment. We were told the barn would be here. I said, "You deserve a barn, just not on my land. Your actual amenity lot is over by the playground." She nodded. Others thanked me. Merritt just watched from his car at the end of the road. First court hearing, Judge Lynn sharp as a tack. She grants the restraining order, bars the HOA from my land, orders them to correct their records. But the board doubles down. Anonymous complaints to code enforcement, photos of my partner Rye fixing fences posted online as proof we're dangerous loners. Rye, who volunteers at the food bank, just laughs. Quiet messages come in from residents, some apologizing, some scared of the board. One sends me an internal email thread, Merritt telling them, "Be relentless. We aren't wrong, we're early. You can be as early as you want, doesn't matter if you're headed the wrong way. You want a twist? The HOA insisted for weeks that their community amenity strip extended onto my land by implication. So I planted a pollinator demo. Bees, wildflowers, 4-H field days, signs citing state law. The next weekend, HOA folks in sun hats lined up at my fence to film. "We can't build a barn there now, there are bees." I smiled. There have always been bees. Now there are signs. Of course, they countersued, claimed I'd inflicted emotional distress by planting bees. Bishop laughed, added abuse of process, and subpoenaed the developer's files. That's when we found the marketing email. We used the pretty map instead of the recorded one. No one will check. That one sentence, pure gold. Final hearing packed courtroom. Judge Lynn cutting through legalese. Is your client's expectation based on a marketing document supposed to override a recorded deed? Their lawyer tried. She stopped him cold. Sentiment doesn't move boundaries. Then she asked me to explain my farm, my hives, my orchard, my boundaries for the record. I did, hands shaking. She ruled in our favor, ordered the HOA to mail corrections, release the lien, pay my fees, hold a meeting to admit their mistakes. Some folks learned. Lacey, the property manager, quit, emailed apologies, and turned over proof she'd tried to warn the board. The treasurer resigned after a letter from the county. Homeowners recalled the board. Merritt, he doubled down one last time, sued in small claims for bee noise. Trail cams then caught board members trying to tamper with the irrigation ditch, almost drying out not just my land, but Adler's and Mrs. Coral's pumpkins 3 doors down. That got the ditch company involved, and the judge issued a scathing order: policy changes, legal training, more fees. In the end, the board got recalled. A new interim slate came to my door, apologized, admitted the mess, and agreed to build the barn on their own lot with engineering sign-off, and invited me to the ribbon cutting. The barn went up smaller, but smarter, with a sign about loving the bees. County even hosted a workshop. If it's not in the recorded documents, it doesn't exist. Merritt, sitting in the back, told me later, "You didn't make me feel small, you made me feel clear." Clear keeps people out of court. The final judgment. My land is not, was not, and never will be a community amenity. The order's framed above my desk, right next to a photo of my grandfather with a shovel. The barn stands, the bees fly, the ditch runs, and the fence holds. Folks choose wreaths over fights. I wake up each morning on ground that needs no phone call to tell me it's mine. And that's it. Boundaries aren't rude, they're respectful. They keep the honey in the jar in the barn right where it belongs. If you've ever had to draw a line and stand by it, or if you think justice is just a matter of who shouts loudest, let me know down below, because truth in the end needs both a pen and a person willing to stand their ground. So where do you draw your lines? I want to hear your stories.